So PD Dubois beats PD Joshua in a battle of PD jobs. And even though Dubois has overcame some major mental challenges, you just don't go from a weak chin like Dubois getting knocked around by cruiserweights like Larina to a cast iron chin like he is now, without roids. You know, and it must be some next gen stuff, next gen shit, because I don't see I don't see many, if any, heavy heavyweights, any fighters who just goes from a glass chin to absolutely iron chin like Dubois. So I think either Frank Warren, has some connections to some pharmaceutical companies that Eddie Hurst doesn't have, or the Zoc boxing establishment just loves Dubois. No. And it's baffling how some absolutely retards will still think that some of these boxers, right, with bodybuilder level physiques while doing boxing training. Either that or have seemingly unlimited stamina, right? Or in some cases, even both of them. And still some retards think these people natty just because they didn't test positive, right? These people are both very uninformed and retarded, you know. They don't even know that drug testing. Some people even know that drug testing exists and still, right? Some people even, while knowing that there are ways of avoiding drug tests, and they still think that some of these fighters, with bodybuilder level physiques, 365, you know, with seemingly unlimited stamina, either one of them or both of them, think people like this are fucking not on roids, right? Retarded, these people, sheeps, man. You know, and what's even more laughable is that some ignorant, retarded Western cannon fodders, right? Some worshippers, these worshippers of truly lab created roid jobs like Canelo, Fury, Joshua, etc. Right? These people say that Zhang, even before second Joyce fight, was not natural. Man. Zhang was out of shape and while having bad trash stamina is not natural, right? The same people who say something like this would worship truly lab jobs like Canelo, Joshua, and Fury, etc. No wonder these people think these people still think of Chinese people as the malnourished and smeared version of a few decades ago. Man. They don't even bother to check the stats now, like the average heights of the recent generations or new generations worldwide. You know, because the fucking retarded. The one is fucking people, fucking cannon fodders, man. But whatever. Onto this fight, you know. And about this fight, I was half right, half wrong. The wrong part being, I originally picked Joshua by decision because I thought Dubois' defense is simply too trash. In the Hrgovic fight, it was simply depending on his ability to take some shots, right? And walked through a natty Hrgovic who lacked stamina and was out of shape, you know. So I saw Joshua with his seasoned techniques and skill was able to beat Dubois some points, but I was wrong. Dubois made some great, not great, but good and solid technical improvements in his fight, especially his jab. His ramrod jab was heavy, right? He's always had a heavy jab, but in this fight, his jab was very quick, right? And he's very well timed and with good rhythm, right? And very accurate. And AJ just seemed to not be able to deal with his jab very well. He was getting caught almost every time, man. Like in the Hellenius fight, he couldn't deal with the jab, and other than the jab, Daniel Dubois even, developed a fast feet, He closed the range very quick. And beyond that, he even has some defense, right? He defended counter like in the first round, first knockdown, right? Where Joshua threw a wild big right hand at him, and Dubois saw that punch coming, right? And just ducked under and ducked out to a new angle, another angle, and fired back his own counter, right? His own big right hand, which put Joshua down easily, And in the last round of his fight, in the fifth round, right, when Joshua telegraphed the uppercut and Dubois was simply countering with a short, straight right hand, which knocked Joshua face first, knocked him out, It reminded me of Beterbiev's KO of Anthony Yard, although not as devastating as this one, So Dubois made some big, technical improvements. And I didn't see that coming very well. But the right part being, unless this fighter's attributes right. As for example, I said Dubois hits harder than Joshua, and as he showed in his fight, right, Dubois simply outpowered Joshua. And I said, although I'm sure that Joshua hits harder than Hrgovic, right? I'm not sure whether he hits much harder than Hrgovic, right? And I showed in his fight that he doesn't really hit much harder than Hrgovic, because he landed some big clean shot that bang on the chin in his fight. Right? And I still couldn't even put Dubois down, right? And I said that this version, this 240 pounds of pure muscle, Dubois, is very hard to knock out. And I was proven right, in this fight. And I said that some people overrating Joshua based on his performance knockover jobs against journeymans like Walling and Ngannou, who basically only looked good against a Fury who didn't train, and a Fury who himself is overrated, And I said people overrating Joshua's power based on that, because I didn't really see much, it's much improvements in its rotational speed and, punch technique, maybe just a little bit, So, and in his prime, Joshua couldn't even drop an Eddie Parker, so people overrating Joshua's power based on low-level knockover job of low-level competitions. And I was right about that, I was right. And I was right about that in this fight. And I don't see any heavyweights. I don't see any heavyweight. And this Dubois might be the best heavyweight on the planet, because, I think his strength, his roids is simply too advanced, I don't see anybody with both this level of physique and this level of stamina, right? Which is a huge indicator that all these other heavyweights are either natty without taking less advanced steroids. Seriously, this Dubois is, you know, unreal, man. Such a heavily muscled guy, right? With stamina, with seemingly unlimited power of recovery and stamina, it's not, it's not impossible. It's impossible with some next gen level steroids, man. You know, so I think Dubois would stop heavyweight. Usyk would be able to handle this version of Dubois and Usyk. Fury would just get knocked over. And any heavyweight who does not hit harder than Joshua, and was this roided Joshua, which includes all heavyweights other than Dubois himself and Zhang, would get stopped by this, you know, Dubois has good skills, good techniques, and it's a steel chin, a newly installed steel chin, at least to the level of Joyce pre-Zhang, I think. And with that kind of power, And even Zhang, if we get a roided Zhang simply with the stamina boosting roids from that version of Zhang from the second Joyce fight, I would be quite comfortably picking that Zhang, that roided Zhang to destroy her. Even this next gen level Dubois, you know, you know. But that roided Zhang is long gone, I think, because as the reasons I stated in my previous video, I think the Natty out of shape, and with basically bad to no stamina Zhang. I'm not sure if we could stop this Dubois. Even the Natty Zhang in the most recent water fight with improved boxing fight IQ. I'm not sure this Natty Zhang would be able to stop this version of next gen level pharmaceutical enhancement Dubois. Although Zhang hits way harder than Joshua, right? Compared to their fights with Parker, right? Joshua couldn't even knock down the Natty, albeit unbeaten Parker, while Zhang easily knocked weighted, albeit beaten Parker with way less punches, right? So Zhang hits way harder than Joshua, but this version of Dubois is just his chin just unreally tough, You know. How are there people who still think this Dubois is not on some next gen level roids, man? Are these people really that numb, right? Really this sheep, right? So, if the Zhang couldn't get this version of Dubois out up there in the first 6 rounds, he would probably get stopped in the late rounds too. But it's a good matchup because Dubois relies heavily on jab, right, which will be dealt with southpaw, with a good southpaw lead hand parry like Zhang has, right, against Joyce, who had a very good jab. And Dubois' right hand will be countered by the check right hook from Zhang, slamming into his newly installed cast iron chin. So, I would like to see if Zhang basically epitome of heavyweight punching power. Quite hard to crack this version of Dubois' chin. That would be a very good fight. As I make this fight, if that cuck, that old cuck Frank Warren is not scared. Imagine if Frank Warren put all this newly next gen level steroids into Zhang, right? Zhang will literally turn into some superhuman-like beings, right? With this level of steroids, they're pumping into Dubois. But the cucked, the Brits, all of the West, really. Brits would never help the Chinese before, other people. So, other than Zhang, I think every other heavyweight would get stopped by this version of Dubois. Maybe Usyk can survive that, but I don't think it's very likely against this version of Dubois. And another thing is that even though Dubois with his next gen level steroids, man, and he improved his chin by a lot, man, and by miles, miles and miles. I still don't think he's improved his punching power by a lot. He's definitely improved his punching power because it's improved his rotational speed, right? Compared to the Dubois that for Joyce, right? This Dubois overall speed is faster now, and so I think this Dubois hits harder now. But I don't think it hits a lot harder because he could even drop Hrgovic, and then even the 90s dropped Hrgovic in the first round, and then basically gassed out after the early rounds, 290. Like Hrgovic was 290 against Dubois, simply didn't have the stamina to keep the success, to keep the early success on Dubois, and Dubois took over, right? It was a lot different from this fight, right? But Joshua simply, panicked, and Dubois still couldn't drop, despite TKOing Hrgovic with headbutt and with a cut, right? He still couldn't drop Hrgovic, or very hard. So, and it's explainable because, the punching power is a far harder code to crack with technologies, right, than strengths, stuff like strengths, which is mostly muscle related, There's also fluidity and technique when it comes to punching power, and less natural loss of energy, which means the energy that's generated by your rotational movement does not slip away before getting to your punch, right? And that's my personal theory. I think the so-called natural power is simply just less or no loss of energy from your rotational movement into a punch, right? So, the punch power is kind of mystical, so it's definitely a lot harder problem to solve for science than stuff like strengths, So even a roided Captain UK like, Dubois didn't really improve his punching power by a lot, I think. He didn't really improve his punch technique and fluidity by a lot. And his natural energy loss or less loss is what it is, right? But Joshua's glass chin, other than Joshua's glass chin, here's an interesting fact, Despite Joshua having a glass chin for top level, his biggest problem isn't really his chin, his glass chin, his mindset, man. He's just can't stop himself from being very panicked, right? Unstable under heavy pressure, right? By young guys like Luis and Dubois. Klitschko was old and stamina lacking after hurting Joshua. But this young guys like Luis and Dubois putting a big pace on, Joshua after they hurt him. Luis was a kind of combination puncher and Dubois was a one-shot heavy puncher, right? So, Joshua's confidence is gone, man. Originally they picked Joshua on decision, but as the fight got closer, right, and I see more lack of confidence from Joshua and more confidence from Dubois. I started to wonder if Joshua gets put on it's a possibility that if Joshua gets put on the back foot, right, and start panicking and gets knocked out. But Dubois really did deliver something like that, I think Joshua is done. Right? You simply can't fix this mental problem. At this stage of his career, I don't think he can. So overall, it was a great fight, and I look forward to more great fights like this.